This is the OMFL.
You can't touch this.
And you're in the mix with Kinda Real Nate. Here's another OMFL production.
Welcome in. Happy Mother's Day and welcome to Press Pass Live on a Mother's Day, a Sunday special right here. I am your host, as always, the founder, the commissioner of the OMFL and the Grown Folks Online community, Kinda Real Nate. I should probably stop saying that because I don't even go by that anymore. I've changed all my handles. Just call me Grown Folks Nate. Call me Nate. I don't care what you call me, just as long as you're calling me. And as always, I got my good buddy from the Colts over here. I'm rambling today. I don't know why. I got to get my thoughts together. The show is live and we're rolling. Mr. D. Wayne, how you doing on a Sunday?
It's good. It's been a good Mother's Day. Stayed out too late last night celebrating Jana's birthday. So it's all rolling together. Not much sleep, Mother's Day, and work tomorrow. But it's been a good day. It's not raining. It's not no tornadoes like it was throughout this week. So it's been a good Sunday.
Yeah, last night was rough here. The weather was terrible, like really bad. We're still under a flash flood warning. It rolled nonstop for about 12 hours and really heavy stuff. Mr. D. Wayne, listen to me. Mr. Maniac is here, but he is on silent as he cooks his wife dinner. But he's scoping us out and listening to Press Pass Live. Maniac, we do miss your thoughts, but before we know it, the offseason will be here, and we'll have all kinds of stuff to talk about. Man, there is a lot to talk about. We don't have a lot of time, so we're going to jump in and start talking about, and that is we're in week 17, and the week is wrapping up, which means we're coming to the very end of the season number 84 and getting to the playoffs. And that's going to get us to some really fun matchups. And I know Mr. D. Wayne has been itching to break down some of these matchups. I think pretty much, I could be wrong, but I think pretty much the playoffs are set. At least we know who's going to be in there. So let's go ahead. Let's break down some matchups that we think. Now, look, Madden does some funky stuff sometimes. You're never 100% sure. It looks like Jacksonville still has an opportunity, but San Francisco's definitely out, and the NFC is set. Does Jacksonville have an opportunity? Do we know?
I think Jacksonville's in over the Ravens.
So is Jacksonville in over the Ravens?
Yes. Ravens lost week 17 to the Steelers, I want to say, and it knocked them out. It was pretty much a play-in game for both those guys. So it's Jacksonville and Pittsburgh are wild card teams in the AFC.
Do we know who's going to get 6 and who's going to get 5? Does it have that in the game yet?
Last scheduling update I seen was going to be wild card number 1. The 5 seed was going to be Steelers, and 6 was going to be Jaguars. But with the way Madden, you never know how it works.
Well, we're going to play it as if the Steelers are going to be number 5, if Jacksonville is going to be number 6, and we're going to go with the NFC playoffs being also a flip-flop with the Seahawks being 5 and the Saints being 6, since he did beat me in a very frustrating Week 17 game, but had some super weird plays on both sides of the ball, but he came away with the victory. So we're going to flip-flop both of those in our brain, and let's break down the AFC first. So that's going to set up the Colts, the number 1 seed. The Dolphins bounce back and have a great season. They're number 2 seed. The Bengals right there, number 3. The Kansas City Chiefs and Maniac at number 4. The Steelers are going to be number 5 at 10-6, and the Jaguars squeak in with a win in week number 17. They're going to be 10-6 and the number 6 seed. So that's going to set up some really interesting matchups of the Bengals versus the Jaguars, offense versus defense there, and the Chiefs versus the Steelers. There's going to be a lot to talk about there. So let's go ahead and break down some of these teams, break down some of these matchups. Let's play the AFC out all the way to a conference champion.
I will say this. I think it's real interesting. I wasn't sure on who, if Maniac or Cincy would get that 3 seed. I was kind of hoping Maniac would be on to give us on that one. I didn't know who the tiebreaker would, because that was a huge that's a huge difference right there, especially being a 1 seed, worrying about who's going to be 3 and who's going to be 4. I really am intrigued by that Kansas City and Pittsburgh matchup. Jennings is, he's been hit and miss with work and stuff like that, but when he's been engaged, he's been a real good player. That Steelers team's really interesting because I've seen them push some of these really, really great teams to the brink. Won some big games. That you look at that division, the Bengals. Like I said, I think they play tonight. They could be 11-5 before it's all said and done. Um, and yeah, well, I guess with that being said, the Chiefs and Bengals are still kind of up in the air because I don't know when Maniac's playing his game. I know the Bengals play tonight, so that could flip flop. I think that's the only ones that could flip flop. But I do think if we're looking at right now, that Chiefs Steelers game is going to be really, really interesting for me. I do think the Chiefs would win that game. I think Maniac, I don't care what he says. I know he's had a rough couple weeks playing. I think just with his team, and he just comes out. He has so much firepower with that team. I know it says right now he's 30th in total offense, but he runs the ball, he gears it up. He's got playmakers on the outside to tear you up if you do try to stop that run game. I just think that experience helps him in this matchup, even though I think the Steelers have a good shot at it because the Steelers do have a lot of firepower on his own side. I just think that the experience that Maniac has just brings him over the top here. Now, this Bengals Jaguars game is really, really interesting because, like you said, Brady's known for being a defensive team. But this season, he really has taken the defense taken a backseat to what he's tried to turn into a more explosive offense. And I think I think you touched on it maybe in your hot seat with him a couple weeks ago. He talked about he wanted to mix things up. He wanted to try to be a little more, I guess you'd say, explosive on this offensive side of the ball. And we know what sense he brings to the table in those Bengals. He can score 50 points on you. He can score 30 points in the fourth quarter on you to come back in a game. You can never count him out. And it's really a tough one. The Jaguars have played really good this season. He fought in he started out the season, I want to say 1-4, I think 1-4, and really turned it around and came back. Because I honestly thought the Titans would come out of our division, and he came around and played really well. I think he won like 5 of the last 6 games of the season, or 4 of the last 6, something like that. That's gonna be a really tough game. It's just Cincyberg still hasn't played like the real Cincyberg, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you.
Quite been there like it used
He
to.
hasn't been himself this year.
He hasn't been himself, and I know he's got a lot going on in real life. He's getting married, or he is married, and I think he has a baby on the way. I don't wish that on nobody. I'm sorry. I know he's got a lot to handle there. But that game really intrigues me just for the fact that this is not your typical Brady Jaguars team, and this is not your typical Cincyberg Bengals team. And I think that's where, and this is probably going to come back to bite me because all I'm doing is giving him some, bulletin board material. I think Brady might overcome that playoff hump that he's, just had since I've been here. Brady's always been a hell of a regular season player. When playoff time comes around, he just has a couple bad breaks and would lose. Even when he was a heavy favorite, he would lose. And I think this might be the year that he gets it. He's played really good football. He's a lot more explosive offensive ball. Yeah, he's not quite as good on the defensive side of the ball this year, but I don't think he's going to need the offense to play with Cincyberg. Even a down Cincyberg is still more explosive than 99% of the people here. But I think this is the year the Jaguars could overcome and upset the Bengals in that 6-3 matchup.
Nope, I agree with. I agree with you. I'll break down a few one for me. I do think that. Look, the Bengals have played much better defense than we give him credit for. He's 4th in total yards. He's 4th in passing yards. He's 12th in rushing yards, 10th in points allowed. No, his offense hasn't been quite as explosive, but he still has a top 10 rushing team, top 10 or top 15 points team. What were the match? I just forgot the matchups all of a sudden because I was trying to think through. Bengals, Jaguars. That's right. So the Jaguars, are going to be known for their defense, but if you look at them this year, they've only been known for their offense. They're 21st in rushing yards allowed, 27th in passing yards allowed, 29th in total yards, 20th in points allowed. In offense, they played really well. Number 1 passing team in the league, number 5 total yards in the league, number 8 in points in the league. But really playing the opposite of what he's been known for, and that has been a really, really good rushing team and a team that plays great defense. I think you've got to play good defense in the playoffs, and for that reason, I got to go with the Cincinnati Bengals to come away with the victory. Even though he hasn't been himself, I think you will see some firepower from him because you're playing a team that has struggled in the past, allowing 227 yards in the air every single game, allowing 341 total yards every game. Cincyberg is going to exploit that and make that an issue and make that something that he can overcome. That's going to set up Kansas City and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh really is the shocking team here, right? We haven't really heard a lot from him. He's been one of those teams that has not played very good. But if you look at his team, that offense was tremendous. 6th in points, 2nd in total yards, 3rd in passing yards, 7th in rushing yards. The defense struggled, but he still finished 13th, so top 15 in total yards. 13th, so top 15 in passing yards. He struggled with giving up runs, 118 yards per game, and points at 22nd at 25 points per game. That's going to be a really interesting matchup with Kansas City, who has struggled on offense, right? But their defense, 11th in points, 2nd in total yards, 2nd in passing yards, 11th in rushing yards. It's going to be really a clash of two teams that are playing completely opposite football. Now, I know Maniac has struggled, and I think some of those struggles will follow him as he goes into this playoffs because Maniac usually finishes on a high point and then goes into the playoffs red hot. He's not doing that this year, right? He's actually playing the opposite, and he's been struggling, but he does get in, and once you get in, all of those records reset to 0-0, and you're never quite sure what's going to go happen. You're going to have to get better quarterback play if the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this game, but I'm going to go with the experience over the inexperienced and really, really good football team on the offensive side of the ball. So give me Kansas City and Maniac because he's been there before. He knows how to win these tough games. He knows how to turn it on when he gets to the playoffs. And that defense is playing exceptional. And he'll cause you to turn the ball over 2 or 3 times. That's going to lead him to get some kind of points on that offensive side of the ball. And Pittsburgh is not playing very well on their defense. I know that their points were pretty good. Their passing yards are pretty good. But look, Maniac's going to run the ball. He's going to eat the clock. He's going to play really, really good defense. So that's going to give me the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry, my computer kind of jammed up. And the Cincinnati Bengals are going to move on, which would set up the Indianapolis Colts against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. If it sits and actually goes this way, the Miami Dolphins against the Cincinnati Bengals, how would you see that playing out?
Well, with my predictions, I was one game off on you. Since I picked the Jaguars upsetting the Bengals, please don't put that on your bulletin board, Cincy, which would set me up with the Jaguars and Colts, and then the Chiefs and the Dolphins. If you want me to talk about mine, or we can talk about yours.
No, let's talk about yours, and then I'll break down mine.
Okay, well, I had pulled up. Let's see, you had the Chiefs versus the Dolphins, and I just looked through the Chiefs stats right here. I think his biggest thing with his guys, he's got, like, kind of like you said just a second ago, he's got to get Mahomes back in the game. 58% passing, 17 touchdowns, 19 picks. That's not very Maniac numbers. That's not Mahomes numbers. He played a lot better with Mahomes before. But his thing that gets me, if you go down, is Henry, Chubbs. You talking about guys averaging almost 5 yards a carry, and Chubb's averaging 7 yards a carry, 9 touchdowns for Henry, 5 for Chubb, almost 1,200 yards for Henry, about 350 for Chubb. That's where his bread and butter is at. I think he's got to run the ball if he wants to win that game against Kevin. Kevin's played really good this year. And Maniac hasn't had to rely, like I said, I think he's 30th in passing yards. But defensively, he's played really, really good. And, we've always said that combination. You look at the two top teams here, and the Seahawks and the Falcons, at two teams who run the ball really well and play really good defense. And I think that's just a recipe for success. Maniac has did that so far this season. He played really good defense, and he can run the ball. If you go over to the Dolphins, he's kind of the same predicament. I mean, Nicholas, who's a guy who I think a lot of guys picked him, I want to say, for the fantasy football, only 55% completion percentage, 2,700 yards passing. He has been hurt a little bit. 14 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. That worries me.
Yeah, he struggled this year. This has not been a normal year for him.
Yeah, going into playoffs, you really don't. I've always said the playoffs gets muddier, it gets thicker. You want to be able to run the ball, not turn it over, and play good defense. That's usually what wins in the playoffs. The air raid offenses have a really hard time in the playoffs, aside from one or two guys here. But if you go down, like I said, he almost exact same thing as Maniac, except he's not as good on the defensive side of the ball. But a Kenyon Drake, 1,300 yards, 6 yards a carry, 8 touchdowns. He's got this DeLon Farrell. He only averages 4 yards a carry, right at 4 yards a carry, 505 yards, 16 touchdowns. Just a big back. Looks like a little, thunder and lightning here. You're talking about 24 touchdowns on the ground right there between those two guys. I think if the Dolphins can ground and pound this game, frustrate Maniac a little bit, which Maniac I think can bide with that one. That if you get in Maniac's head, that's usually the only way you can beat Maniac is just getting his head. And I think if he runs the ball here, plays decent defense, doesn't let Mahomes beat him, make Maniac run the ball with Henry and make Mahomes make mistakes. That's where he wins this game. And I think that the Dolphins here play a really, really close game. I think they pull out a 20-17 win on the Chiefs. It all abides on what Mahomes can do. If Maniac comes out and throws the ball really, really well, I think the Chiefs can win that game. I just would hate to if Maniac comes out and throws an interception on one of the first 2 drives. I think he gets in his own head. I think he's gonna it messes with that right there. And I think the Dolphins are built more to run this ball. And I just don't see him carrying Nicholas. I don't know what the deal was this year between his starter and backup. 19 touchdowns, 24 interceptions between the starter and the backup. That's not Kevin-like numbers, which like I said, it's not Mahomes-like numbers either. I just think the running game for the Dolphins is just a slightly bit better. I think he runs the ball and pulls out a 2017 win on a very, very ugly game. I don't think either one of these quarterbacks throws real well, and I think that's why I just lean in the favor of the Dolphins. And then you go over to in my opinion, the Colts versus the Jaguars. You're going to look at the Jaguars. He's the number 1 team in passing, and that's just crazy to hear from a guy who, for the longest time since I've been here, he ran a 3-headed running back attack where he would run 150, 170 yards a game.
Not what he's known for.
It's not what he's known for. He's only averaging 107 yards a game rushing, which is not horrible, but it's 18th in the league this year. His defense is where it really surprised me. He's 29th in total yards, 27th in passing, 21st in rush defense. That's not Brady-like. You start going through here. His starting quarterback is Watson, 21 touchdowns, 19 picks, 65% completion percentage. It's really not bad. It's actually pretty good for Brady. Brady never has relied on the passing game. He really wants to run the ball. But then it really worries me, man. You go down here and you look at Morgan, you look at Banks, you look at Cross. He's still got a 3-headed monster there, but it's 880 yards, 350 yards, 306 yards, and none of them are averaging over 5 yards a carry. 4.8, 3.9, 4.2. They do have 21 touchdowns between the 3. But that's really not Brady's style. Brady usually does have a home run hitter. He has a power guy. And he just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's just dedicated to the pass this year. It's just not Brady's style. But like I said, the biggest thing to me is the defense. If you look at his defense, he only has 1 guy who has 4 interceptions, and that's his cornerback. Miles Jack has 3, and I think that's who he usually covers with. And I know Brady has really cut down and tried to, and I'm not taking FPR shots here. He's really, really worked on his FPR on defense.
Yeah, he has.
And like I said, it resulted in less interceptions for his user linebacker. I think that's going to hurt him just because he's not relying on his defense like he was built to win the playoffs for a team that never. I don't want to give any bulletin board for a team who hasn't had much success in the playoffs. He's really built for the playoffs. But he's built the exact opposite way this year. He's got an air raid offense, a subpar defense. But Brady is a trooper. He is an experienced player here. And like I said, he's going to be coming off a really, really big win over Cincy and the Bengals in that first round. I just think he's going to have a hard time if he tried to rely on the running game against, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but a team who's built, when I go to the Colts, a team that wants to stop the run. If you go through the Colts, just a few things. Cam Newton had a good year this season. He did have, with Bo Scarborough coming back off injury, I have 2 running backs with Hines and Scarborough, both at almost 1,000 yards. If you go through just a little bit, the Colts hadn't had to pass the ball a whole lot this year. They've ran the ball real well, 178 yards a game. You go to defense, they're 8th in total defense, but they're 7th in rushing yards against at 101 yards. I think this is what presents a problem for the Jaguars. I have a hard time believing that Watson's going to throw him into a win. I think he's going to have to run the ball a lot better, and I just have a feeling that I know for me, I like to stop it's really hard, Nate, to talk about my own team. I just want you to know that. As a Colts team who wants to stop the run and make the other team pass, I think it just sets the Jaguars up for failure in that one. I think Watson will throw a few interceptions, and I can honestly see this game being a 17-14 or a 20-14 game. I think the Colts squeak out a win here in the playoffs. I don't think he'll score. The Colts will have as many points as they did in the regular season because, like I said, the playoffs get to a muddy, grindy type of football. I see a 2014 win. I think the Colts beat the Jaguars, and I think the Dolphins squeak out a victory against Maniac and the Chiefs.
I just want to say thanks to everybody who's in the chat. I see Bloop and Kevin are in there. Kevin's giving you a hard time if you do, or if you're able to see the chat. But look, the way I kind of see this breaking down, I think my matchups were going to be Kansas City versus the Colts, and then the Bengals versus the Dolphins. I'll break down Bengals and Dolphins first. Look, the Bengals struggle with stopping the passing game, and they can't pass the ball for some reason this year. Now, I still love their quarterback. I think he's a top 5 quarterback. Miklos is still a top 5 quarterback in this league. He can win, but he's definitely going to have to turn it on here in the playoffs. The thing that I like about this team is they can run and they can stop the run, but you can't stop the pass. And if you look at Cincy, that's what they're really, really good at. I mean, they have been known in the past of being a passing team. Now, if you look at the stats for this year, he hasn't done it. He's 22nd in passing, he's 10th in rushing. And so now you're talking about if this team plays as they have all year, you're talking about a team that is strength versus strength. It's rushing attack from the Bengals versus the rush defense of the Dolphins. Look, the Dolphins have turned things around. I agree with you. It seems like Cincy Bird has a lot going on, but look, he still managed to get into double-digit wins. He still managed to have Mariota have a really good season. But look, Mariota only has 11 touchdowns this year. He does have a 1,000-yard rusher in James White, but no one else really did excellent. Nemo did okay at 3 yards a carry, but only 398 yards on the season. Now look, John Ross is still doing his thing, 53 receptions, 1,100 yards. Michael Thomas has 53 receptions for 800 yards, so both of those are dual-threat guys, and you have a really good defense. I would have to go with the Miami Dolphins. I think Miami has his number, and I think he's going to come out on top on this one. That's going to lead us to the Colts and the Chiefs. This would be a really, really good matchup. This would be a fun matchup. Now, look, your Colts, what they're really good at is they play excellent defense. They cause you to turn the ball over, and they have a really great running game. The problem that I've seen in the past with the Kansas City Chiefs, and playing Maniac myself many times when he was over here in the NFC South, is he does tend to turn the ball over when he starts to press. And if he starts to press early, he's going to press all game long. And a lot of times, those one interception early, he's going to turn into 3 or 4 by the end of the game. And he's not really going to stay with trying to establish the rushing game. Now, so far this year, he struggled with passing the ball. So he could go into this game trying to establish the run. But I don't know that Maniac can stay patient enough against you to be able to trade field goal for field goal and keep it to a tight game, keep it to a 10-point game even going into the fourth quarter. Look, does have a great passing defense, but that's not what the Colts do really well. You're going to be super effective passing the ball. Look, I looked at some stats. You had almost 2,000-yard rushers. One guy at 1,011 yards, one guy at 942 yards. Then you had 2 guys at almost 500 yards in Cam Newton and Kenneth Dixon. So, that's what you do is you establish the running game. And if he plays zone on you to try to take away the passing lanes, that's going to leave Cam Newton to get some big runs. I like the Colts coming out on top of this one. So that would, for me, would set up the Miami Dolphins versus the Indianapolis Colts. I think we've seen that matchup before in the past, but we're going to get to see it again, in my opinion. And on your side, who's your matchup? Your matchup was the Indianapolis Colts versus the Jaguars?
No, it was the Dolphins.
Oh, so we're both calling the same AFC game here, Dolphins versus the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to go first on this one. Look, this is power versus power, right? A really great steady defensive team in the Indianapolis Colts versus a Miami Dolphins team that has struggled with defense. But this is going to be power against power again because the Dolphins shut down the run pretty well. 99 yards a game, 6th in the league, only 20 points a game, 8th in the league. The problem is that the Indianapolis Colts actually can win games where they don't score a whole lot. Now, they were first in points this year, 35 points a game, but a lot of those points come off of because of turnovers, setting up a short field, and because Cam Newton has that running ability, it has opened up those passing lanes. You're 11th in passing this year, which is really super efficient and effective, and that makes it a really, really tough game. You're 7th in rush defense. He struggled with running the ball this year passing the ball this year at 20th, but he's doing well at running the ball in 6th. So this is going to be power versus power, a back and forth. We've seen this matchup, and we've actually seen this matchup score a whole lot more points than we've seen in the past. I don't see that happening here. Seeing this being a defensive game, give me like a 14-6 victory for the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts are going to be your AFC representative for OMFL Bowl number 84. How do you see this matchup coming out?
You're going to be mad at me when I say this. I think this is a good game. I think you got two teams of like-minded. Me and Kevin always play really, really close games. He's a way better user defensive guy than I am. He really makes me look around the field to see where he's using because he can user anybody. And when Kevin's going, I've always said he's almost like gasoline. If you get him on fire, he just takes off. And that's what I think happens. I think I have a hard time with turnovers. If I turn the ball over a couple times, especially on my end of the field, I won't say it gets in my own head, but it does take me out of my game plan. I don't like to turn the ball over at all. I don't think anybody does, but I really base my whole offense over taking care of the ball. I think Kevin comes in here, and I think he does have one hell of a game. I think it's more of a, I'll say 27, maybe 27-20, 27-24 game. I think Kevin comes out with, how'd you say his name? I keep calling him Nicholas, but you called him something else.
Yeah, I don't know how to say. You
Nicholas?
guys hear me stumble on
cooler
these
than
names
Nicholas.
all
I
the
don't know.
time.
Oh, Nicholas sounds pretty cool. We'll go with that. I think he comes out, and I think he plays a really efficient game with this one. I think he's a revengeful game from our game earlier this season. We had a game that was really, really close. He had a couple late turnovers that kind of put it out of hand. But he's been here. He's been a playoff team. He's a fighter, and I think that's what he does in this playoff game. I think I have a couple maybe strip sack fumbles with Cam, especially trying to run the ball. I do want to take advantage of the run. If guys dropping coverage, I will take off with Cam's big self and try to get some yards, but I think it backfires. I think I have 2 fumbles with Cam, maybe an interception. I think he wins this game 27-20. I just think he plays as good as he can play this game, and I think he sets himself up to represent the AFC, and I would be happy to have Kevin represent the AFC this year.
Yeah, I don't know that I see it playing out that way. I do think it will be a really good game. Two teams that really know each other, and I would not be shocked if look, I think the Colts are in it no matter what. It would not shock me, though, if Cincinnati figures out a way to get in there. And, look, I never put it past Brady. I just don't see anyone being able to beat you. I think your team is too effective and too efficient on the offensive side of the ball, and Cam has added a new level for you that you've always kind of used, and that's taking off with the quarterback. But Cam has been really effective for you this whole season. So it's going to bring us over to the NFC. So you got the Miami Dolphins in it. I've got the Indianapolis Colts in it, and we'll see how that one actually plays off. We'll get back over to the AFC when we get to the bowl game, but let's get over to the NFC. Right now we got the Atlanta Falcons at 15-1. They're going to be the number 1 seed. The Arizona Cardinals won their division, a really tough division, at 12-4. They're the number 2 seed. Dallas Cowboys bounce back. They're 12-4 this season. They're the number 3 seed. The Seattle Seahawks, even though they missed a ton of time, they're actually going to probably finish the number 5 seed because they beat me at 11-5, and then my New Orleans Saints were able to squeak in there at 11-5 for the number 6 seed. So that's going to set up the Dallas Cowboys probably versus the New Orleans Saints. I'd be open to that. I think that would be a really fun matchup, but I think it'd be a fun matchup also if I got to play 0-0, and that, I think, in my opinion, is going to set up the Seattle Seahawks versus the Detroit Lions in some really, really big matchups here. Let's break down the Dallas Cowboys and New Orleans Saints first, and I'll let you get a first shot at it.
Well, like I said, I think it's going to be a fun game. I think Maximo's a few games this year with work. I think he was gone. He hung in there. The NFC East kind of beat each other up, and he came out alive in that division. You and the AFC or NFC, I keep saying AFC, NFC South. like you said, it's been D Money's. He just kind of ran away with it when he wants to win that division, I guess you say. But like I said, 11-5 is nothing to scoff at. That's a heck of a season. And coming in a wild card team at 11 wins, I don't see any team that come in the playoffs at 10 or 11 wins. You're not much of an underdog, especially in the wild card round. I think this game should be interesting. If you look at the Cowboys, they're 16th in total offense. 17th in total offense, 14th in passing, 22nd rushing, which gets me. Which a lot of that's because he's been gone. I'll give him that because the computer won't run very successful for you. If you look on the defensive side of the ball, this is a tailwind for me. He's fourth in total points given up, fifth in total yards, third in passing, and 20th in rushing. I'll give him that. 20th in rushing is not real great, but I'll give him that on holding people to 178 yards passing. That's pretty damn good. You really can't scoff at that. If you go some of the players, Archer had a subpar year for him. Like I said, a lot of it, I'll say a lot of some of his stats will go to the computer.
It's just a lot of
58%
interceptions. I mean, he had a pretty decent year, just a lot of interceptions, right?
He did have a line interception. Now the completion percentage would eat me up. I'm sorry, Massimo. I couldn't do 58%. That would just eat me up. 3,600 yards passed, 26 and 16. That's better than a lot. I think his QB rating would be higher if his completion percentage was higher. But 26-16 is a lot of interceptions, especially for me. I throw up at the thought of interceptions. 26 and 16. You go down here, Ronald Jones, 1,000 yards, but after then it drops off. His backup running back, Gordon Horton, 276 yards, only 3 yards a carry. And Archer's your next best rusher. He's got to get more out of his running game if he's going to win the playoffs. If you go down his receiving course, he did trade off France. I want to say he traded off Francis this year. I could be wrong. I don't think Francis is on his team anymore.
No, you're right. He got traded over to the Bucks.
Right, and Gallup used that and just took off with it. He does have 14 drops in the season, but 96 catches, almost 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns. He really took that number one guy and the number one red zone because Francis used to be his red zone guy. You go down Vaughn Cook, Everett. I think Everett's his tight end, is his third receiver. He's got some good disparity there, but he wants to go to Gallup, and that can lead to problems in the playoffs. We know how it is when you got one guy, unless he's DJ Moore running around the field. If you don't have more than one guy that you can go to, guys really start focusing on it. You go down defensive side of the ball, he's got some studs over there. He's got two guys with 17, 18 sacks, Terrell Jacob, Corey Lyon. You got two edge rushers there that can just get to the guy, get to the quarterback. Vander Esch, Massimo Pirelli, 10 interceptions, 9 interceptions. This is where he makes his money. He creates turnovers. I think that kind of deceives a little bit that he does create turnovers. He gets a lot of points off turnovers. And I think that kind of deceives what his offensive statistics look like. When you're only having to score, I've always said that. When you play something like Mo or D Money, if you let them have the ball at midfield and they don't have to go 30 yards to kick a field goal, that's what they want. They don't have to work at it. There's no work. And I think that's what you look at the Cowboys. They get a lot of short fields. You don't have to do a lot of work, and you don't have to have just crazy offensive stats if you get the ball, halfway down the field. But creating turnovers wins games, and I think the Cowboys are really good at that. If you go over to the Saints, you look at the Saints. Sorry, I caught myself there. The coffee. 26 in total offense, 23rd in passing, 27th rushing. I'm kind of surprised at your rushing stats, Nate. I don't think I've really stalked your profile out in a little while. But 27.
I had some injuries this year, but look, it's just a really tough year on the offensive side of the ball. With Kamara was down for a couple of weeks, and backup running backs really were not successful this year, and it just really was a struggle.
Yeah, if you go to the defensive side of the ball, I think you see where you win. You hold your third in total points given up at 19 points a game. You win games when teams can't score on you. 9th in total defense. 11th in passing, 9th in rushing. You go down to the quarterback, Jared Goff, 104 QB rating, 64% passing. You really can't ask much better than that. 21 touchdowns, 13 picks. He only got sacked 42 times on the season, which I think that's about 3 times a game, about 2.5 times a game. Sorry, it's Arkansas math. You got Kamara leading the way rushing. Like I said, we just talked about a little deficiency running the ball. Kamara, Hakeem, Mack, Boston Scott. I think is that 4 running backs you're running with? But Kamara is by far the best one. I think that's just a given. 790 yards, I think, is down. I want to say last year Kamara had a hell of a season.
Yeah, the last couple of years he's been, in that like 11 to 14 range.
When you got Fitzgerald and Valdez-Scantling, he's the one from the Packers, I want to say, leading the way, 930 yards receiving for Fitzgerald, 781 for, I'll just call him Marquez. And then you have a really secret weapon in the name's going to kill me today. Your tight end.
Yeah, Devon's actually on IR though. He got hurt a couple weeks ago. Kamara went down week 1 after like 1 carry. I think he was down for 5 weeks, and then my tight end got hurt 2 weeks ago and is now on IR for the rest of the season. And even Marquez has been hurt for the last 6 weeks. I think he'll come back for the wild card round. But he's been down for the last 6 weeks. So just overall, it's been a really tough season on offense.
Well, losing that tight end's gonna hurt because I remember watching and I think that's and I know we do not abuse your tight ends, but having speed and having a playmaker at tight end really, really is dangerous to have. And losing him, I imagine, is going to hurt. I imagine you'll have to shift your game plan around. I don't know who your backup is, but I imagine you'd have to shift your play making around a little bit. If you go down to the defensive side of the ball, like I said, you got, I want to say, like 3 or 4 guys with over 5 sacks. You got Jamerson, who has been a playmaker for years now with 6 interceptions. You got Harris and Fisher. Lattimore only has 3 interceptions, but I know from playing Lattimore can shut down one side of the field. And if you're somebody like me, I literally will avoid that side of the field. So it's kind of deceiving his stats right there. I think this can be a really good game, though. I think you got 2 teams who are playoff experienced teams, 2 teams that, like I said, I kind of look at the Cowboys. I see they're a 95 overall team, and that's just god dang ridiculous to have a team that good. But I think this game will be a really good game. I think it's going to be, I know we keep saying that, a playoff atmosphere score, because I don't see both these teams. I think you average 25 points a game. He averaged 23. Both y'all had really, really good defenses. I think this is going to be like a 16-10, maybe a 13-10 game. And I think the Saints come out on this one. I think they come out 16-10 here. I think the Cowboys missing some games. I think he's going to be just a tad bit rusty. And honestly, I can't remember if I think he's going to be here for this. I seen yesterday something about him being gone, but I think he will be here for the first round. I can't recall. But I do think the Saints come out. I just think experience comes out here. I think you take care of the ball with Goff, and his running game really worries me. And I know you've had injuries inside the ball, but it really worries me. Ronald Jones, man, is a beast. Ronald Jones has way more yards than that. And like I said, a lot of it's tribute to him being gone. But I think this is going to be a 16-10 game. I think a few turnovers here or there on both sides of this team really dictates this game. I think the Cowboys throw a few interceptions, especially with user lurking in that safety back there. I think it's a 16-10 game. I think the Cowboys go home. That really hurts me to say the Cowboys go home early. But I think the Cowboys go home early this year. I think the Saints pull a slight upset. Like I said, I think most teams in a wild card, very few teams, if you're a 10-11 win team, you're not a really underdog. I think the Saints win this game 16-10 off a few turnovers, and I think the Saints get the running game back. I think he just grinds it out. I think Kamara has a big game here, and I think the Cowboys, as long as the Saints keep the ball out of Van Der Esch and Paroli and all their hands on defense, I think he wins this game. But like I said, I think it's going to be about a 16-10 game. I might even stretch and say like 17-14. But I think it's going to be a really close game, but a very low-scoring game that the Saints pull out and win here. And I'll jump over to the other game, which is going to be the Lions and the Cardinals. Is that who we said it was?
No, Lions Seahawks.
Lions and the Seahawks. I'm sorry, DBL. The Lions snuck in. We've talked about it all season. The NFC just been, I don't know. It's been kind of funny to see them fight, just drag out fight in the NFC North. I mean, the Vikings almost came back and stole this division after playing as bad as he had played this year. But DBL just hung in there and played really good defense this year. At least on the scoring side of the ball, he held teams at 19 points a game. If you go through his thing, he averaged 21 points a game. He's 25th in total offense, 28th in passing, 15th in rushing. I will go to that. The 15th rushing is going to be really key here in the playoffs because he's got to take care of the ball and run the ball, especially against the Seahawks team. Like I said, defense side of the ball, he only gave up 19 points a game. He's 20th in total yards, 22nd in passing, 15th in rushing. That's another key. That's funny. He said that offensive defense, he's 15th ranked. He's going to have to stop the Seahawks running the ball to win this game. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. You got to stop Martin. I think Nate can speak volumes now. We know Martin is just a bowling ball. He just rolls downfield, picks up yards. If you go to the Lions passing attack, Hazleton, only 57% passing, 19 touchdowns, 26 picks with a 70 QB rating. He's going to have to keep the picks down this game. You can't, I spoke to it earlier, you can't give the Seahawks short fields. You can't turn the ball over. You can't give him any extra hope because he already has the God's grace on his side already. So you can't give him anything else. You go down here, Kobe Harvey, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4.8 yards a carry, solid running. Pumphrey, 410 yards, 4.3 yards a carry. He's got some running guys. You're really going to have to run the ball successful against the Seahawks team. You got King, Crowder, and Hurst, all with 800, 700, 600 yards. He's got a little diversity there passing the ball. And you go down to defensive side. You got Potter, who I think was an import from last Madden with 3 forced fumbles, 4 picks. You go down here, I think that's Tabor has 6 picks, and White has 8 picks. So he's got some defensive prowess there that I think he can cause problems. But the only way you cause problems against the Seahawks is you make him pass the ball. If you let him run the ball 40 times a game, he's going to beat you. If you turn the ball over against him, he's going to beat you. And that's why I don't think I have to touch on the Seahawks near as much as I did the Lions. I think everybody knows what the Seahawks have. He was 26 points a game, 4th in total yards, 16th in passing, 3rd in rushing. See, there's a key right there. 3rd in rushing. You're going to have to stop him running the ball, or he's just going to run on you all game. You go down here, he only gives up 19 points a game, which I see is a trend here. I hope that's not a glitch. I've seen like 5 teams give up 19 points a game. 14th in total yards given up, 26th in passing. There's hope there. But if you go over here 3rd in rushing, he's one of the best rush defenses in the league, but you got to be able to establish the run. If you can't establish the run, his defense is too good. He's got too many playmakers. That's where I think the 26 in passing yards allowed is kind of a give or take. I think teams get behind, they have to throw the ball against him, but I do think they turn the ball over a lot. I was trying to pull up here to see what the turnovers were, but I'm almost certain Mo is one of the leaders in turnovers taken away. Look at here, Russell Wilson, 3,600 yards passing, 64% passing, 18 touchdowns, 14 picks. Not perfect, 97 QB rating. He's beatable in the passing game. If you make him pass the ball, you have a chance. But if you let this guy who I'm fixing to talk about, Joey Martin, 330 attempts, almost 1,700 yards rushing. He's only averaging 4.9 yards a carry, which is good, which is really great. But when you look at almost 1,700 rushing, you think that this guy's just breaking runs, but he's not. He's getting 4 or 5 yards a carry. He's beating down your defense. There's nothing more frustrating, and I know Nate can speak volumes on that. That's why he kicked me out of the NFC South. He said he got tired of seeing 5 yards a carry every carry, and he had 23 touchdowns this season with Martin. And you go to his backup, Rashard Penny, 506 yards, 4.4 yards a carry, another one just grinding yards out. But he's sneaky go Wilson because he will get 1 or 2 runs on you a game with Wilson. If it's not 1 or 2 first downs, but 1 or 2 first downs, especially when he's taking the ball to the 50, is huge. You go down here, Javier Edwards, who Mo thought would never be a player in this league, or at least he tried to convince us that. 1,200 yards receiving, 20 yards a catch, 7 touchdowns. Lockett, 1,000 yards. He's just been a mainstay in that Seattle offense. And he's got Gronk. Just a safety valve here, 13 yards a catch. He doesn't have a touchdown in the season, but just a really good tight end who is a really good blocker, deceptively really good blocker, and can catch those short passes. He's going to take his shots with Edwards. He's going to take his shots with Lockett, and he's going to take them check downs with Gronk. You know what's coming. Can you stop it? Martin's coming for you. You go to the defensive side of the ball. He's got J.J. Watt. He's got Galette. He's got Clinton Diggs. He's got both the Griffin brothers. He's got weapons all over the defense. And I say this as in you can't – if you're DBL here, you can't pass the ball. You got to be able to run it. You got to be able to take short passes if you're going to do it, or take deep shots down the field to where he can't lurk and pick you off. But it all starts – you got to stop Martin. If you don't stop Martin, you're not going to win this game. And I know it's easier said than done. It doesn't look like very many people have stopped him this year. I have a hard time. I would love to see DBL and the Lions come out with a win. I would love to see him progress. I've always told him he was his own worst enemy playing the game. He's a really good player, but, man, he's running into a gauntlet. 11-5 Seahawks is deceptive because I think 4 of those losses were when Mo was gone. I think Mo wins this game maybe 30-14, 30-17. I just think he's going to come back. He's come back with a vengeance. He's been gone. Mo is the most modest person I've ever seen when it comes to his own gameplay. I just have a hard time seeing him stopping Martin. I think Martin runs the ball. I think DBL starts trying to put an extra guy in that box, and I think the Seahawks take advantage down the field with their 2 speedsters. I'm going to say 30-14 Seahawks over the Lions this game. Lions had a great season, but man, you just picked the wrong guy to get the wild card.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's not a lot to add. You really broke down both of those games really, really well. The thing about the Seahawks, he just keeps hammering you, and even if you make a couple plays on you, he just doesn't let up. And he's got playmakers on all sides of the field, and he's really tough. You got to play a perfect game against him, and that's very, very hard to do. Lions have had a good season. They've got a defensive MVP in Potter that's up for a vote right now. He's had a pretty decent running game. He plays a lot of zone. My problem is that if you're going to play zone against the Seattle Seahawks, he's going to run with Wilson. He's going to pick up those frustrating 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12s on you. He's going to hit Javier Edwards and Lockett for big plays down the field. Even if you got them covered up and you're playing two-man over, then he's going to run deep routes, and before you know it, Wilson's going to break off a 35-yard run on you. Then you're going to think you're going to have everything covered up with safeties and cornerbacks, and he's going to hit Gronk for a big 25-yard pass, and then just before you know it, man, he can just make big plays. He seems to be able to score at will on teams. Seattle Seahawks are going to come away with a victory on that. I think I match up really well against the Dallas Cowboys. I've had a lot of luck against him this Madden, and he and I just, I seem to, you just play some guys where you just seem to have their number. With that said, I do think he comes away with the victory, but I think this will be a close back-and-forth game. It's going to come down to the two quarterbacks. Can Archer not turn the ball over, and can they force Goff into some turnovers? I do think he lost some firepower trading away his receiver over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this will be a great game. These were two fun matchups. Either the Lions or the Cowboys. I enjoy playing them. They're frustrating to play. They're tough to play. They're really, really good teams, but they're fun games for me because I just match up really well. I think I can come away with the victory here against Dallas. It will not be easy. I will need some luck. I'll need some big plays. I just think Archer is not playing up to snuff, and it's hard for me to say that because I'm just giving him bulletin board material for him to come out and just bash me in my teeth. But this is why we do a show, is we have to make a prediction. So give me the New Orleans Saints and the Seattle Seahawks to move on. And I think that you and I are both agreeing on that. I think you picked the Saints, right?
Yes.
So that's going to set up some really interesting matchups, and this is where things are going to get funky, right? And that's going to set up the Atlanta Falcons against the New Orleans Saints, and that's going to set up the Arizona Cardinals against the Seattle Seahawks. So two divisional matchups here between some very, very good teams. I'll make my call right up front. The Atlanta Falcons are going to kill me. He plays with me like a cat plays with a toy. He plays with a lot of people, but he just has my number. He's a much, much better player than me. I hate playing him. I'll just be totally honest. He makes me want to retire every time I play him. His team is not only built to be very unstoppable, but I personally think that this guy could be a top 5 player in the universe if he wanted to be. He knows he has this game beat. He's broken the code, so to speak. He knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. He knows what plays work, what plays do not, and he knows how to play this game right inside of our rules, but just he knows that, like, if he needs to put his foot on your throat and let you know that he's got you, then he'll do that, right? He just toys with you. He's going to hammer me. It won't even be close. He may toy with me and keep it close just because it's a playoff game and he doesn't want to embarrass me. But, look, Matt Ryan is an MVP, 33 touchdowns, over 3,000 yards. Freeman, another 1,200-yard season, 5 yards a carry. Smith averaged 6 yards a carry. He had 700 yards, 12 touchdowns for Freeman, 7 for Smith. Ridley, 70 receptions for almost 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Julio, 10 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, he's got speed with Deion Jones, ex-LSU stud, 69 tackles, 5 sacks, 3 interceptions. Trufant's got 6 picks. October's got 4 picks. Banks threw in another 2 picks. I think he plays the slot. He's got playmakers on top of playmakers on top of playmakers, and he's just going to murder me. There's no reason to even spend a lot of time talking about that game. That's going to then bring us to the Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks. These guys have battled it out this season. I mean, it has just been back and forth between these two teams, and it's going to be another really classic match. We've already talked about the Seattle Seahawks and what they do really, really well. The Arizona Cardinals are just as good. Now, they're kind of average in the middle on offense, but look, they're putting up 29 points per game. They're only giving up 20 points per game on defense. They give up a lot of rushing yards, but do really well in they give up a lot of passing yards, but do really well in the rushing yards. Only 104 rushing yards a game. Josh Rosen's played pretty good for him. 27 touchdowns. It's nothing to shake a stick at. Even his backup has 5 touchdowns. Not a ton of rushing yards, but he seems to have a two-headed monster in Muhammad and Johnson. DJ Moore still making plays over there, 1,200 yards on 51 receptions. But Mike Evans is this big body guy that he's going to get the ball to in the red zone and make big plays. Shaq Thomas had a really good season with 6 picks. Buda Baker, 6 picks. Anthony Brown had 9 interceptions. Buchanan had 7. So he's an interception machine that can get after the quarterback and fly. I think that this is going to be a great matchup. This will be an instant classic game to watch. I think the Cardinals are going to come out on top. I think the Seahawks have missed a lot of games. He may be a little rusty whenever you play the upper echelon teams in this league like the Cardinals, and the Cardinals seem to have their number this year, and this seems to be the year. So I'm going with the Falcons and Cardinals in my NFC Championship matchup. How do you see this coming out?
I do think you and the Saints will be you and the. I think D Money, like you said, he's just a machine. Matt Ryan, 33 touchdowns, 9 picks, almost 70% passing. Freeman and Smith, you talking about 1,200 yards, 700 yards, two-headed monster running the ball. And I mean, you covered his team. He's pretty stacked from top to bottom. The only thing that gets in the way of him, I've always said, I thought that if you kind of put him in a thing and make him pass the ball, and I know he passes really efficiently, I think that's how you win that game. Is you try to shut down his run, try to make him pass. Him and Mo play the exact same way, in my opinion, on the offensive side of the ball. When I say that isn't like their gameplay, I guess the game plan style. I didn't say gameplay. They want to run the ball, take the easy shots or take a deep shot, and they want to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball. And I can't knock that. I love to run the ball. So I can't knock that. I think the only way you beat him is you make him pass the ball, shut down the run, make him pass the ball, get a few interceptions or a few incompletions. That's the only way this game goes like that. And I say that against anybody who plays D Money. That's just a recipe for success against him, and it's not a very good recipe because apparently it doesn't happen very often. I think this game will be closer than you think. I think it'll be more like a 30-24, maybe a 30-17 game. I think it'll be close until the end. I think the Falcons team is just so deep. It's just so deep, and if you don't make him mess up, he's not going to mess up on his own. I think the Falcons win this game 30-17, 30-24, and then I think we're going to send him over to the Bills and let him take over the Bills so he can get out of the South. I think if you go over to the other game, the Seahawks and Mo versus Mo, I think we've had 2 Super Bowls with them against each other. I could be wrong. I know it was 1 Super Bowl.
Yeah, I know there was 1 for sure. I don't know if there was 2, but there's definitely 1. And then I think they've been in the same division for most of this Madden.
Okay. Yeah, you got the Cardinals have really made some splashes. To me, he hasn't built a complete team per se with the Cardinals. Explosive team. Like I said, Rosen, 27 touchdowns, 14 picks. His backup, who he almost played over Rosen. He was really debating whether to start him over Rosen or not. 5 touchdowns, no picks, 150 QB rate in a couple games that he got to play. His rushing game is not there, and this is where I say that I don't think he's built a complete team with this team, is because I think he's has some deficiencies. If you look at his roster, he's really paid for some guys, DJ Moore, Mike Evans. I think they take up like 35, 40% of the cap, just them 2 guys. Johnson, Muhammad Adams, solid running game there, enough to get by with. And then you go to he's got DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Doug Baldwin. I'm almost certain like Heuerman. One of them is his tight end, but he's got 3-headed monster there with Moore, Evans, and Baldwin. And he's another person who's just really, really good at creating turnovers. Shaq Thompson, 6 picks. Buda Baker, 6 picks. Anthony Brown, 9 picks. Buchanan, 7 picks. He just creates problems. I think he's got like 6 defensive touchdowns on the defense side of the ball this year. And that's what he goes for. He wants to beat you with that deep ball. He wants to pass on you. He wants to tear up the scoreboard with that passing game, and he wants to create turnovers so he don't have to go a whole 75, 80 yards. And I think that covers deficiencies in building your team. If you can create turnovers, you only have to drive 30 yards to score the ball. you don't have to have as complete of a team as somebody like you look at somebody at the Cowboys who have a 95 overall team who's built from top to bottom, just really, really good. Uh, but I think the Cardinals is good enough on the user side of the ball, defensive side of the body. He's always gave Mo and the Seahawks problems. And like I said, this a huge matchup. And like I said, they play each other twice a year, so people get to see these teams play each other. But he's running into a person who, like I said, I'm going to keep saying this. I think Mo's going to come back with a vengeance this playoff. Nobody ever counted him out. I don't think anybody ever did. I think some of the NFC was hoping that he wasn't going to be able to squeeze in the playoffs, but he did. And that's just, you just let a demon into your life when you let Mo get to the playoffs. I think Mo wins this game 20-17. When I say Mo, I mean Seahawks. Mo wins this game 2017. I don't think the Cardinals stop his run game. I think he runs the ball. I think he takes some deep shots. I don't think Mo Samuels, I'll say Mo Samuels since that's his name. I don't think he beats himself here. And I think that's the only way the Cardinals win this game. If they create a few turnovers, make Seahawks, I'll just keep saying Seahawks get out of this game. That's the only way he wins this game here. I know he plays him close. That's why I say I think it'll be a 30-24, maybe 27-21, something like that. It'll be a touchdown game. I just think the Seahawks are just too deep. They're built for the playoffs. They run the ball fantastic. Don't turn the ball over much. And he plays just enough good enough defense. He knows where he's going to go. He's going to go to more Evans. I think if he could take more out of the game and don't turn the ball over, I think he wins. That's why I'm going with the Seahawks. I'm going to say 30-24. And I think that sets us up for another Seahawks-Falcons NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I got the Falcons and the Cardinals. Again, I think we've talked about these teams ad nauseum, so we kind of know exactly what these teams are.
Right.
I don't see anybody beating the Falcons. I wish somebody would, but again, playing him this year, I completely lost any hope of ever beating him. Like, I used to enjoy playing him a lot back in the old OMFL days. We had really good battles, but he just seems to toy with people this entire Madden, which I think gets under my skin knowing how he tanked for that one season, and the guy is just really, really good, and I don't see the Cardinals being able to beat him. That's my pick. Look, I don't think the Cardinals are any scruff at all. He's a very good team. I think the lack of a running game is going to hurt him. Rosen's going to have to pass the ball more. And, man, that Falcons team, when they're playing zone, just flies with the ball. And he's gotten better and better and better playing the safety. He can crash down and shut down your run. But he's so fast that if he crashes on a play-action pass, he'll recover. And, that's my flaw with the game, that what you should be able to burn him on a deep pass because he took 4 or 5 steps in and the receiver's 3 or 4 steps behind. He gets that, user speed burst that happens, and he recovers, and you just threw a pick in a play that you thought you had him, and in a play, in all honesty, you did have him. He's just that good. His players are fast. His players fly to the ball. They make plays. I don't see anybody beating him. So I got the Atlanta Falcons representing the NFC and OMFL Bowl number 84, and that would set up the Cardinals and Falcons for me, 2 number 1 seed teams and 2 of the more dominant teams that we've seen in a long time. But you have the Seahawks and the Falcons, so how do you see the NFC Championship game playing out?
Down one, the Falcons lost this year was to the Seahawks in a really, really close game. And I just think the Mo just matches up real well with him. I think D-Money meets his match with Mo. They're 2 brilliant Madden minds. And I think the Seahawks win this game. I think they win 14-10. Neither one of these teams want to score a lot of points. They want to run the ball, take care of it, no turnovers. And something's got to give here. And I just think the Seahawks win this game 14-10. I think he takes the NFC back this year. I think, like I said, I've said it since the beginning. We've been breaking down these games. I think he's come back with a vengeance. I think he's going to be playing as good a football as we've seen him play. And I just think Martin's the key to success here. If you don't stop Martin, then you can't stop the Seahawks. And I think the Seahawks squeak out a victory here. I think it's like 14-10, maybe 17-14. Really, really close game. Could go either way. I think D-Money has the team to win. Just like you said, he just toys with most people, but this is somebody he can't toy with. He can't toy with Mo. And if you give Mo a little bit, I always say, if you give him out a cookie, you ask for a glass of milk. But if you give Mo a cookie, he's going to get the whole glass of milk.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think Mo wins this game. I think it's a really, really close game. It could be an OMFL game. I think Mo wins this game. And with my choices, it's the Seahawks versus the Dolphins in the OMFL Bowl.
Yeah, I'll break down mine first. I think that this will be Falcons and Colts, two really dominant teams. Look, I played you, Dwayne, enough to know that I would never count you out. You play the most consistent, straight FPR that I've ever seen in this league, and I think for that reason, you can never count you out. And you force teams into bad decisions. You force them into bad throws. I just don't see anybody stopping Dwayne. I'm sorry, D Money. His Falcons team is so strong. I think that it would be a great matchup, and I could see this one going into overtime. And my heart would be with the Colts, but my head says that I played the Falcons too much, and every time I played him, it honestly felt like, a college student playing with a newborn baby. Just whatever he wanted to do, he could do. Like, literally, he could do whatever he decided to do versus me. And you're not me. You're a much better player than me. But playing both of you, I think it would be a really fun matchup. It would be a great matchup, and I think it would stay close, and I think the Falcons would come away. I think it would be a tight game. Whoever had the ball last would come away with the victory. But I've seen you in the playoffs before, make some Dwayne decisions and turn the ball over. I think that we'd see that happen on both sides with the great safety play. I think this would come down to who has the ball last. And again, I think if D-Money makes up his mind and he needs one last drive with 40 seconds left to go for a field goal to win it, he'll do it. He'll call out the plays he needs to call out. He knows what works. He knows what doesn't. He's going to freaking just have his way no matter what team's on the other side of the ball. He's going to kick the field goal to win it. I see this being an overtime game, a 36-33 victory for the Atlanta Falcons. But you have the Miami Dolphins versus the Seattle Seahawks. How do you see OMFL Bowl 84 playing out?
I think it's a really good matchup. I think Kevin, like I said, will be riding high. I think he's going to be playing really good football. But he is running into a brick wall that we call the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks defensively just play so good. I think they put you, like you said, in positions to turn the ball over, and they put you in positions to fail. And on the offensive side of the ball, he doesn't put himself in position to fail very often. If he can run successful Martin, then he has to pass just enough, honestly, to be FPR correct. And I think that's where he wins this game here. I think he just runs the ball really well. I think he runs the ball well enough that Kevin has to stack the box and get an extra person there to try to start Martin. And I think that's where Edwards and Lockett tear him up on the outside. I think as good of a team as the Dolphins do have, I just think he can't stop Martin. And I think that when you can't stop Martin, it brings all kinds of problems. I just think the Seahawks win this game. As good as Kevin made a hell of a run, Kevin will be playing really good football. I just see it being like a 27-20 game. I think Kevin kind of gets Mo out of his game a little bit, makes him play a little more up tempo, a little more scoring, a little more points. But I also just don't see him stopping Martin. I think Martin has 150 yards, and I think the 2 or 3 times that he stacks the box, that Edwards and Lockett get behind the defense and just tears it up. So I go with, like I said, I go with the Seahawks winning this right here and gaining his trophy back. I think, did the Seahawks win last season? I think the Seahawks won last season.
Yeah, you're right. It was the Seahawks versus Jets. There was a snafu, but the Seahawks did win that one in a really classic game.
So Mo starts his 4-peat run right here. He goes for his second championship. And like I said, I think it's a heck of a – and you got to give Kevin a lot of respect here for the fight that he's going to put up. But I just think the Seahawks just a little too much, and I think the Seahawks win this.
Well, there you have it. That's our predictions. I see the Atlanta Falcons doing it. He sees the Seattle Seahawks doing it, and it'll be fun now. Now we get to the playoffs late tonight. That last game happens. We're going to save owner-submitted questions. I don't think we have any, but we're going to save that. I've got some things I'd love to rant about, but we're actually going to save all that. We just wanted this to be a playoff predictions show. Hopefully Maniac will post a blog or do something to get his predictions out there, because we want to hear what Maniac thinks as he cooks his wife some supper. And it's been a good show. So let's put a bow on it and give me your closing thoughts as we get into the playoffs. And before we know it, we'll be into the off season.
Oh yeah, I think it's been a really good season. I know we've had some bumps in the road, but I think, like we always do, we'll recover and keep going just as strong as we always have. I'm just really excited for the playoffs, and I know a lot of teams that aren't in the playoffs are really excited for the offseason to get here. So this is a lot of excitement going on right now. The playoff teams all trying to make a run. Teams that didn't make the playoffs are just ready for the offseason because the offseason we know is always really really fun. And don't forget the Toilet Bowl is going to be kicking off pretty soon too. I think I can't remember how many teams we got signed up. Collins taking care of that. Interesting to see some of those teams there turn it around, and I've seen Toilet Bowl winners come back the next year and make runs in the
All the
OMFL
time.
playoffs.
Happens all
So
the
yeah,
time.
I think it's this exciting time of the year, and I would like to welcome our newest OMFL member, Bloop. I would like to welcome him here and ready to see what he can bring to the OMFL.
Yep, I'm super excited about Bloop. Look, I've told Bloop this, and so I'm not sharing, private information. I always get a little nervous when commissioners of other leagues join us because, look, the OMFL is my baby, and I want guys who are 100% dedicated to the OMFL, and I don't mind them being in second or third leagues. That's none of my business. But, as any commissioner should say, they want guys that are in their league, that league is their number one league. And for a commissioner, that's impossible to do. But Bloop is a pretty abnormal commissioner in the fact that he is super dedicated, and he's been itching to get into the OMFL. And so don't like how we got where we got, but this is where we're at, and I'm glad that we're replacing maybe a non-active, non-content-driven owner with someone who I think is going to be very active and very content-driven. And I'm excited to see what he'll add here. And he's been a great guy to add to the community. And he, in my opinion, is a Pootie T number 2. And the TFL is an NBC number 2. They're just like another great league that has added a lot here to the community. Look, the awards are out. I'll get some posts and stuff up later this afternoon, maybe even tomorrow or Tuesday. But here in the next 48 hours, we'll get the awards post, my all-in-one off-season, business season post. We'll get all that up for owners to make it easy. There's a new incentive plan that's out there. So look, make sure that you guys check that out. It's a little bit different, a little bit easier, a little bit prettier at least. Rob does a really great job, and he's just been a great asset here. And so probably going to be some offers going out to Rob to come be a part of the board and help us with what he already does well. And so look, there's a lot of changes that have happened. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'll let the cat out of the bag. We'll talk about it deeper at other Press Pass Lives. I know that this is going to grab a lot of people's attention, especially Mr. Outlaw. He loves these shows. But this is probably going to be our last season. I think just mathematically it makes sense. We'd have to rush through one last season and maybe cram one last season. And honestly, I'm loving Madden 20, but I know what it felt like in Madden 19 when I hated that game. And there are a lot of guys hate Madden 20. And so I think one last season. Yes, you cannot take your imports from this draft. I'm sorry, that's not going to change. There's a very specific reason for that. So you will have to take your import from the season before, which means a little bit older imports, a little bit more mature imports. And who knows, we may even do like one more offseason, one more draft to let you guys get those imports. I don't know. We'll talk about that. But this is probably going to be our last season. This will take us into the beginning of July. We should wrap up towards the beginning of July, give us, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks off. I think that would be a good break. For guys just to kind of hit the reset button, get ready, get excited for the new Madden. We can plan some streams and some release giveaways, all that fun stuff that Maniac and others helped us out with last Madden. That was just a ton of fun, and we'll do that again. And maybe we can do something with our new friends over at Soden Bowl and do something together at release. I think it would be a whole lot of fun. So a lot of good stuff. Let me go ahead and get our advertising out of the way. daddyleaks.com/OMFL. That's where you can check out our OMFL page. I'm hoping that this all stays the same for Madden 20, so we don't have to go buy a brand new one, because that seemed to be a big headache this past year. GrownFolksOC.com. That stands for Grown Folks Online Community. So GrownFolksOC.com. See all the OMFL material, all the OMFL 2 material. Haven't seen a lot from TFL, NBC, PFFL, and TGC, or TGC, the Gridiron Football, whatever it is. I think a lot of those leagues are starting to hit the brakes for the rest of the summer, so we're not seeing a lot of content there, but we're going to start seeing some PUBG content come out here pretty soon. The Golf League is still going really strong. Our YouTube page, Grown Folks Online Community, please go give us a follow and a subscribe, man. We sure would appreciate it. We'll subscribe to you right back. Our buddies over at Soden Bowl have been an inspiration to see how many followers they have. They have quadruple what we have, and they get quadruple the views on stuff. But we really would appreciate if you give us a subscription, and we'll subscribe to you right back. I think we put out some fun content. I've been trying to stream with my mic a whole lot more. If you're really into PUBG, I think you'll find some fun PUBG stuff that's out there. Our Twitch, twitch.tv/grownfolksoc. I stream PUBG, Madden, Golf Club 2, a little Red Dead, not a ton of Red Dead, and then some WWE. That's all going to be on there. Oh my gosh, it's so much stuff. Twitter.com/grownfolksoc. Give us a follow. We'll follow you right back. And then our partners that we could not do any of this stuff without, daddyleagues.com. If you have a Madden League, you should automatically go ahead and invest the $50 or whatever it is to get you a Daddy Leagues page. Recently, we did a talk podcast. We bought the talk back, and me and my buddy Pooty T did a breakdown on the latest Madden 20 information, and we're going to try to follow these up every week after their Thursday EA streams come out. We'd love if you'd watch it. Leave us a comment, a like, something. Give us a share on Twitter. Help us get this content out there. We're doing this for Daddy Leagues, and we hope that you guys enjoy two long-term commissioners' view on the latest Madden news. Then, of course, our buddy over at Lee Crawler, leecrawler.com. Matt is the absolute best. He's a monster. He's a stud. We're going to have him on the show really soon. He couldn't do it today, but we're going to have him on the show soon to talk about some Madden 20 news. And then, of course, our buddies who are actually on the stream right now, thank you guys for being in there. Over at Soden Bowl, if you play on Xbox, you need to go check these guys out. They are top-notch. They're putting out some of the best content that you've ever seen. Our old friend, Mr. Alpha, who's been over there helping them out. We've even got some new friends. I think I'm going to say his name wrong, but Mr. Ferrara, maybe. He's been a big supporter of the OMFL since we formed this partnership. So make sure you support our buddies over at Soden Bowl. Follow them on Twitter. Subscribe to them on YouTube. Watch their content. It's really good stuff. And then our last partner, OvertimeHeroics.com. This is for all your sports, our gaming, forum talk, and website talk. They have really, really good stuff. They're really growing what they do. They are kind enough to host our podcast over there that we do for all of our different leagues. Their forums have tons of activity. If you're super into sports forums and you want to talk anything from hockey to dominoes, I'm probably pretty sure you could pick that up on here. Look, go subscribe, follow them, sign up for their forums, and start chit-chatting with them. Really good dudes, and we appreciate everything that they have done for the Grown Folks Online community and for the OMFL. So that's going to bring us to the end of our show. Thank you guys so much for chatting and being in the chat today. We appreciate it here on Mother's Day. Love your moms, your wives, give them big hugs, and do something special for them today. I'm going to go do something special with mine right now. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys enjoy your week. We will talk to you after the offseason has started to roll. So after the playoffs are done, our next podcast you're going to see from us is going to be our OMFL Bowl 84. I'm going to try to do that with some commentary. Hopefully Maniac or Dwayne will not be in that game. They can't both be in it, so one of them won't be in it, and hopefully the other one will come and do some commentary with me. Who knows? Well, maybe we'll ask Soden or Mr. Alpha from our buddies over at Soden Bowl to come and do some commentary. Be a ton of fun. So thank you guys so much for watching us today. We appreciate it. Have a blessed week. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Later, guys.